Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Mike Ames Show. It's me, Kirsty Ames, and the true glory of the show. But I am, of course, joined by, I never remember which side it is, Mike Ames over there, looking absolutely spectacular today.
Like a Bond villain, I like to think.
Like, yeah, but I mean, they were always legendary and very cool people, you know. So, and of course, today we are joined by Mike. I believe you're referring to him as the Delegation Supremo.
Did I do
Sir
that?
Barry Hoffman.
He's not really a sir, but he should be. I thought he should be. So just put that in there.
Hi, Barry. Thank you. Right. Hello. In fact, if you'd have shown me the respect I deserved, you would have renamed this to the Barry Hoffman Show.
Well, some people think it should be. Other people think it should be the Kirsty Ames Show. But here's the bad news, everybody. Mike Ames Show. So suck it up.
Only because you got in there first. Got in there first.
So I think what we're talking about for everyone, because you can do that, can't you, Kirsty?
Yeah, so today, you know, Barry is the sort of king of delegation and has been in many places. So, you know, you were HRD of Computacenter, and now you are People and Corporate Services, MD of People and Corporate Services at Landsec. So you're a man who knows what he's doing when it comes to delegation, aren't you? So, I mean, the first question I'm going to ask is, why should I bother? As a leader of a business, why should I bother with delegation? Put it out there.
So at Computacenter, I ran an HR function with about 350 people in across 20 countries. If you don't delegate, you will simply kill yourself. I mean, that's as simple as it is. You get to a certain size of organization and you cannot be everywhere all the time. You cannot be in the detail of every project, every activity. You have to let it go. You have to let people get on and do their jobs. No question. So it's for your own sanity and your own health, and actually, more importantly, for your business. Because if you don't let stuff go and let people get on with it, it will cripple your business for sure. So
can I ask you, you've worked in very big companies, and I know you've worked in smaller companies too, because we've been working together for a long time. How important is this in a small business as well? Because people would say, it's a small business, you know, it's right for Barry, he's got 300 people, he can delegate whatever he wants. I've got me and someone else. I mean, you know, how important is it for that person to somehow be able to delegate?
Well, I think the same premise is true. If you don't delegate, then you'll die. You won't be able to get through as much work as you need to get through, because it's not humanly possible. And it'll be at great expense to your own personal health, your mental health. You know, I've seen it. I've seen people who can't delegate. But even if there's only 2 of you in a team, you don't have to delegate within that team. You can delegate by outsourcing. You can delegate by working with partners. You can delegate by all sorts of means. I mean, obviously, I'm an HR director, so I do a lot of recruitment. So if I'm interested in a competitor, I can do one or two things. I can try and find out about the competitor. I can pay for data or intelligence, or I can just interview a load of people from the competitor. I mean, that's effectively outsourcing, isn't it? I've just interviewed a whole load of people who are telling me all about their company. I don't have to do anything other than just interview. I mean, you know, it's kind of obvious, isn't it? So outsourcing and kind of out-tasking, there's all sorts of ways that you can delegate your activity and get a result that you want.
Well, can I ask another question on the back of this then? Because ever since I've known you, you've always had a personal assistant. I won't mention her name, but she's very good. In fact, all the ones you've had have been very good. Like mine, like Melanie, it just gets done. Now, many people couldn't afford a personal assistant, but you can get virtual assistants, which are pretty much the same thing, really. You pay an amount of money and you take a number of hours a week or a month, and they will do a lot of the stuff that you do. How important do you think it is for people to kind of investigate that if they can't afford a full-time PA?
So I've tended to use my assistants to keep stuff away rather than do things on my behalf. So because of a lot of the work that I do is quite technical, obviously I don't do it, other people do it, but you know, my people do. It's quite technical. Normally the PA is more about oiling all the wheels and making sure that everything's followed up, making sure that people have got the right kind of reminders, that the diary works, all of that type of stuff, rather than actually doing any work. I think one of the things about delegation is that it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to give the people that work for you and with you something really interesting to do, something that is an opportunity for them, something that they can grow and develop by doing, and that moves them on in their career. So actually, I think you're doing somebody a really big favour by delegating to them. So having a PA is useful, but not essential.
Are you saying then it's not only a way to shift some away from you to get someone else to do things, but actually it's part of someone else's personal development process, along with training and everything else that they do? Being able to take things on that you would normally do is part of their personal development. Massively.
I think if you read Dan Pink, who I would really recommend, a book called Drive, he talks about what motivates people being autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And autonomy is having the time and space to do something. Mastery is about learning new stuff, and purpose is obviously having a sense of purpose. And that's what motivates the majority of people. And it's well worth a read. You can look it up on YouTube. There's kind of summarized sort of talks and whatnot. But if you think about, it's about shifting all the onus away from you as an individual. So you might be a business owner, you might be someone who thinks that they're really important in a corporate or something. It's not all about you. You have to shift that away from you to, in order to get stuff done to benefit the business, I need to delegate. I need to find people who can take on that responsibility. And this is an opportunity for them to develop and grow. And you surround yourself. I have always surrounded myself by people who are miles better than me. Always.
Mike does the same thing.
Yeah, thank you for that. Does that mean you sometimes have to change your team? You know, when you move into a new role or whatever, you kind of have to look at what you've got and change things.
Yeah, I've always been somebody who is quite decisive about the team, and in order for me to do what I need to do, and I've had quite big roles, and the role that I have now is equally large. Landsec is a FTSE 100 company. I have IT operations, company secretariat, and HR. And in order for me to do what I need to do, I need the right team. So I tend not to hang about, and I'm very much a believer in you can't put in what God left out. So if people aren't up to the job, stop sniggering, Kirsty. We're
going biblical. That's all. I've never gone biblical before. One of these.
You can't. You know, if somebody has a completely different perspective or is not able to do certain things, then you as a leader, you definitely can give them a chance. But if they can't do something, it's better for everybody. It's better for their career and their own kind of personal development that they have different opportunities and try stuff somewhere else. So sometimes
it's a very interesting point, because I think a lot of people feel a little bit of guilt about getting rid of teams because they don't fit, but it is a two-way street. Like, if just because they're not right for the team, it also means the team and the company isn't right for them. They're going to go to work and think, oh, instead of going to work and being like, yay. So it's an interesting point. I guess a lot of people haven't thought about.
There are multiple teams in any organization. So just because someone isn't right in my team doesn't mean they're fired. It means they can go somewhere else in the organization. It depends how big it is. But I think it's really important, because so many people now do feel pressure and stress and react in different ways to different situations. And actually, it's better for everybody if people find the right place for them in an organization or a team. So I tend to be quite swift about making those sorts of decisions. And it's my job as a leader, I think, to form the right team and to make sure that we've got the right balance of skills in order to get through the work.
That also includes externals too, doesn't it? When you're talking about team, it's a virtual team. Obviously, you have a big internal team, of course, but a lot of people watching the show won't have that. They'll have a small team, or maybe a one-man band, but they will have partners and they will have suppliers. The same thing applies, I presume. You don't settle for less than what you need, do you?
No, so at Landsec, I've outsourced our recruitment, and I have a recruitment partner, and they are part of our team. They sit on site with us. They do all our recruitment for us. So anyone who's watching who thinks that I'm ripe for recruitment now, no, thanks very much, I'm sorted.
I'll give you Barry's personal telephone number. I should put that in later, so you'll be fine.
Thanks, Mike. But no, they're part of the team, and they are, involved in the strategic thinking, they're involved in the operational projects, and they are absolutely part of the team. And you can't put a rice paper between us and the outsourced partner. And that's similar with other partners that we work with our lawyers, on the corporate side, with our tech partners as well, because they are part of the team, and I won't accept anything less.
Well, somebody said to me, we use this now as a supplier. You want to be designed into the solution, and as a client, I suppose, or a user of services, you need to design people in, don't you? Really, to get them in, to make them work.
I think if you're thinking about delegating, the first thing you got to think of, you've got to pick the right people, because otherwise it's a waste of time, isn't it? You have to have the right people to be able to do the right expertise, the right attitude. All of that type of stuff is absolutely critical to delegating. And once you've got the right folk, you need to be clear with them. You need to give them time to do what it is that you're asking them to do, and you need to trust them as well. And more than anything, just you've got to accept that people will not do it the same way as you. No one will do it the same way as you. They might do it 80% the way that you would do it, but you've got to remember that other 20% might be better than the way that you were going to do it. So it might not, but you cannot live your life thinking that everyone's going to do everything exactly the way you want it perfectly. And sometimes it's a learning experience for everyone, not just the person you're delegating to, but you yourself, just to let it go, leave it settle, and just say, no, that isn't quite how I wanted it done, but accept that the consequences are low, the risk is low, the impact is low of it not being quite right. It's okay. That will allow you to move on. That's the only way that you will get the hang of delegating.
Would you then use that as a learning or teaching experience, coaching experience, to say, well, okay, let me explain why that isn't, and maybe we can figure out why it turned out like that, so you can learn? Would that be the kind of approach that you would take?
I would use it as a learning experience both for me and for the person. So I'd be saying to somebody, well, let's learn, Kirsty, what happens when you don't take your hay fever tablets. Let's understand the implications of that. And then
some people enjoy this voice. Some people enjoy this voice. How dare you? Okay, and I told you I'm challenging.
I don't need to know that, just so as everyone knows. I don't need to know that, really.
But honestly, I mean, it's for the person, but also for me. So what happens if I leave it as not 100% perfect the way I wanted it? And this is what I see particularly. So the Computacenter, a very big organization. It's about 5 billion of revenue, but it's effectively founder-led. So you're working with a founder and a founder mentality. And I'm very lucky that his name was Mike as well. The CEO of Computacenter was really good at delegating and allowing people to get on with things, because you've got to just accept and move on. Otherwise, you won't get stuff done.
But it is very important to get people who at least share similar values to you, i.e. they might do the thing differently, but the values that sit behind it, the rules or the ethics or whatever you want to call them, are similar to yours, because you're going to be at conflict otherwise, aren't you? There's going to be problems. So
that's what I mean about getting the right team. I think if you, and I spend probably more of my time teaching people about my own values and standards, because if it's to a really high standard, which is one of my sort of values, then I can live with it. If it's different, it's just a different way of doing it. It's fine, but it's to a standard that everybody knows that I aspire to. So that's okay. So I think the values piece is really important.
So what? Sorry, you were going to ask a question, Kirsty. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, basically, we've got a couple of questions coming in. I was going to say, this is a great opportunity to ask questions to Barry, whose answers are always incredibly and to the point. Barry don't mince no words. Let's put it that way. So if you have any questions, then please let us know. I mean, first of all, we're getting a lot of love for the can't put in what God left out. We love it. We love the biblical phrases. So
yeah, if you want another one of those, not biblical, but I would say really important to check in on people, but don't check on them. Checking on someone, and you know this yourself. All of the people watching, you know how irritating it is because you check on. Are you doing it? Is it going? But checking in on somebody, are you okay? Is there anything I can help you with? Completely different mindset. So
would you schedule those check-ins then? Would you schedule them to make sure that people realise they were coming, and it's not that you don't trust them, it's the fact that that's a scheduled check-in, or would you just? Well,
I think it depends. So for me, it depends on the nature of the thing that you're kind of delegating. If it's something really high impact, high risk, really important, I think delegate that with caution. But if you do delegate something which is sort of medium risk or something that's really important to you, then I would be clear in the terms, you see. So when you're delegating, I think I said you need the time, you need the touch point, you need the trust. Well, the other T is the terms. And one of the terms, so the terms would be, well, we're going to check in once a week on this, just to make sure you're okay. And if there's any, and part of your job as a leader is to put people in touch with other people that can help. I mean, more than anything, that's what good leaders do. They connect across teams and organizations. So if you see someone struggling with something, then yeah, the easy way is to say, give it to me, I'll do it. But, you know, my kids didn't learn to tie their shoes by me going, give it to me, I'll do it. I mean, you've got to help them. We've got to help people, no matter who you are, at what stage of your career you're at. And I'm learning all the time. And people, you know, really good delegators will do stuff like that for me. They'll put me in touch with other people.
And I guess with that as well, with following that kind of shoe tying analogy, you do have to also let them fail a little bit, because the mistakes that you learn from failing are going to be 10 times bigger than the mistakes you learn from getting it, the lessons you learn from getting it right, aren't they? So allowing people to fail in a safe way, if that's possible, is definitely going to help them grow.
Yeah, that's why risk is really, understanding your risk appetite is really important. So if you're doing some huge presentation for an investor or something, is that something you want to delegate? If you're doing something for an internal team, then why not delegate it? And if someone makes a complete hash of it, you won't be able to say anything to them that isn't worse than all the stuff they're saying to themselves. This is a much more effective way of somebody learning to get stuff wrong. It's how people learn. So
my father learned to swim because his friend threw him in the reservoir in Cheslin Hay, and it worked. He swam. I mean, he did get out, but I think the risk factor there was probably higher than he would have liked, I think.
I'd like to add a PSA. Please don't do that. Please don't throw your friends who can't swim into reservoirs. It worked for my grandfather and it worked out fairly well for us, but please don't do that, because he wasn't a great swimmer. Didn't enjoy it.
Got my granddaughter lined up for the hot tub later, so
be fine. So I do have another question. So this is a good question. So as a rule of thumb, how much should or can you delegate before you become too devolved and removed from the process? So I guess another way of asking that would be, how do you delegate and still sort of keep your finger on the pulse of your business?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's probably as much as you're comfortable with. So if I think about, I use Computacenter because it's an easier example. So, you know, there are people who work for me who had teams of maybe 10, 15, 20 people. Let me actually talk about Volkswagen, where I worked for 14 years. So people might have a team of 10, 20, 30 people, and then there'd be me. Maybe I had a team of 100, and then, you know, I'd go up a couple of levels, and my boss's boss might have, you know, 500, 1,000, something like that. But there was somebody in Wolfsburg in Germany who had 80,000 staff, and somebody else who might have 50,000 staff. So it's a scale thing, really. How much are you comfortable with? Look at the outcomes. I think it comes with experience. You know, how much are you, how comfortable are you with sensing what goes on in your organization? Those of you that run recruitment businesses, you'll know there are probably 2 or 3 levers in a recruitment business that you need to worry about, and the rest you can worry about if you like, but it probably isn't going to make much difference. You know, gross margin is probably the thing to worry about, I guess, for you.
You're referring to that management by exception, aren't you, in a sense, so that if you know exactly what your KPIs, metrics, whatever you want to call them are, that dictate what you're responsible for, if everything's okay, then that's just fine. Carry on. No need to engage. Yeah. If something is not where you need it to be, or it looks like it's going to be not where you need it to be, then not so good. You have to.
So if I give you an example from your world, so whenever I've RPO, whenever I've outsourced recruitment, which I've done now 4 times to different companies, I'm only really interested in one metric, and that's the number of direct hires. I don't really care about anything else, because I know if you're hiring 90% direct and 10% through agency, I know that you're maintaining some relationships with some key agencies and not wasting your time on the rubbish. I know that you're doing all of the stuff that goes around direct hiring. So all the direct conversations, you're probably doing some open evenings, you're probably keeping candidates warm. You're understanding the business, because that's the only way you can hire direct. If you don't know what's going on with my business and its strategy, you won't get candidates. So there's a whole raft of things. I know that the finances are going to be fine because the mix is right. So I only need to look at one number. And if that number drops, and if you're only doing 60% direct hires, it's all gone wrong. And I'm not interested in anything else. So that for me is where I delegate the whole thing. And they're clear, the RPO company are really clear about my standards, about how I want candidates treated. But I don't really get involved in all that. Well, I don't need to either, as long as it works.
Yeah. It's interesting as well, because I suppose the big thing that I'm getting from most of this, we do have a couple more questions that I'll cover in a second, but the big thing I'm getting from this is you only pay attention to stuff because of delegation. Your focus is on the things that need your focus, and everything else is to people who are better suited to everything else. That's what I'm getting throughout all of this. So as a leader, that's strategy, that's building those client relationships that need your little touch to it and making them feel special. That's, putting out fires that only you can handle, which means you're focused on it and better at it, not driving yourself insane, and everybody else is doing the things that you would do and doing them better. I mean, that's just a key thing that's coming out for me over and over.
I really believe in leverage activities, the tiny nudge. So, you're on a oil tanker or a huge ship or something, a tiny nudge of the wheel sends it off in the right direction, tiny nudge back, those sorts of things. So I kind of consider myself like a surgeon. So all the people that work for me, it's their job to prepare the body, shave the patient, open the patient, do all the stuff that I just don't need to do. And I come in and I do 1 or 2 quick incisions, job done. Other people close it up and off I am to the next one. So for me, it's kind of think like a surgeon. You don't need to do all that other stuff. You've got years of experience under your belt. You should focus on the stuff that really makes a difference.
Well, can I ask a question then? When people say to you something like, well, if I want a job doing, I'd do it myself. That there's an adage around that. I mean, how do you feel about those people, and what do you think that they should do with themselves? Because it doesn't seem to fit in with
live television, can we? But I think that kind of thinking, that's fine, but not all the time. If you really believe that, I mean, can you really look in the mirror and honestly say, I'm the only person that does things right. I'm the only person that can do all these things. The evidence wouldn't bear that out, would it? Otherwise,
it means you've got a rubbish team, of course. In which case, that could be true, but you've got a rubbish team around you, so you probably are the only right person.
Yeah, but if you've got a rubbish team, then whose fault is that?
Exactly.
And why are they rubbish? Maybe they're not getting clear instructions. Maybe
your team is what you deserve. That's what they always say, isn't it?
And just think how it makes somebody feel if they've had a go at something and you come along and go, no, that's all wrong. I don't want it like that. I want it like this. I mean, why would they bother again? So you kind of get the type of team that you deserve, really. If you're constantly interfering and micromanaging and checking on people all the time, they are going to give up. No question. Why would you bother? I wouldn't bother. I wouldn't waste my time with someone I know is going to try and rewrite everything that I do. I mean, what's the point?
So you have to build an environment of trust and an environment of delegation, an environment of support, really, for people to do well in. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nurturing people. It's giving them, like I said, the time, the touch points, the trust, clear terms, so they know what they're going to do.
See, it's interesting to say this, because a lot of people listening to this show are small businesses. In fact, there's supposed to be about 40,000 recruitment companies in this country. 39,000 of them are small, really small, and 20,000 of them are one-man bands. Now, some of those people are that way by choice, because that's what they want, which is fine. Others really do want to grow. And another statistic around that is 73% have got less than 10 people in. So, and 10 people happens to be the magic point where if you can't delegate, you can't get past 10 people. That's the deal. Well, you will, but you'll come straight back down again. So it would appear that if you do want to scale your business, delegation should be right up there as point number one, really, on the skills and abilities scale, shouldn't it, really?
If you're not comfortable with delegating, I would say try it in small ways first of all, and it's a two-way street. So my top tip, if you want a top tip, never ever go to a meeting with a pen and a piece of paper. always take someone more junior than you, because they'll get the actions. And that is an opportunity for them. Like, genuinely, it's an opportunity for them to take some responsibility, to have a chance to grow, to do something on their own. And then when they've done it, get some praise and reward for it. And it's an opportunity for you as well to let go, to trust other people. So it might be something really small to start with. You know, I mean, people don't ask for brochures anymore, but, you know, say someone said, oh, I need a brochure, can you send it to me? You know, or can you email me this or that? Then, you know, you take someone, they should take responsibility for that, and be clear. That's your responsibility. I'm going to leave that with you.
And I suppose that means in the meeting, you're not going, Gary, write that down. Gary, write down the brochure.
Yeah,
So you just leave them.
Yeah.
No, you have to genuinely leave them.
Don't take people called Gary to a meeting with you. That's the way around that, I think.
Gary's a legend. Back off. Gary's a legend.
But before you go to a meeting, say to someone, this is what I'd like, you know, today I'd like to try something different. I'd like you to lead on X, Y, Z, but I'm going to cover these topics if they get raised. But if the client asks for anything, I want you to take the notes. I want you to follow up. I'm going to leave that with you. And then when you've done it, just come back and let me know that it's all been done. That would be really helpful. Thanks. And then don't check up on them, you know, every hour for the next 3 days kind of thing. Let them do it.
And you are prepared to let people fail, aren't you? You are prepared to let people fail. So the shit hits the fan. You can edit that out, Kirst. So shit hits the fan twice. And you let it, and then you can debug that and say, well, okay, let's see what happened and the consequence of what happened, and let's talk about that, because that wasn't good, was it? Yeah. And then they're probably not going to do that again in the same way. And if they do, then you've got to ask yourself, are they the right person for this team?
Well, exactly. I never blame or think less of anyone for making a mistake. I'm not happy if they make the same mistake more than once. That doesn't really work for me. But if someone makes a mistake, we're all human, it's absolutely fine to make a mistake. And the thing about making mistakes is, as long as you've got the wherewithal to sort it out, that's fine. And sometimes, you know, I'm the top cover, so I have to sort stuff out. But it's okay, because people will never make that mistake again, almost certainly. And if they do, then they're not the right person.
It's that adage that Mike uses, there's nothing you can break that I can't fix once. You know, if you're breaking something and you come to me, you're like, I tried this, it didn't work. This is why it didn't work. Please help me. Then you're going to be like, yes, fine. I'm a leader. I help you. If they come to you after making that exact same mistake to the exact same level twice, you're going to be like, Gary, we need to chat.
Who is this Gary character? Who is this Gary character?
You know, Gary, you're a 16-year-old boy. Sorry, right, we've gone offline. So what I do have one final question, and then we'll start rounding up. So this is from Sam. How do you stop having favorites in what you delegate? So if you have a client that you like working with, or things that you enjoy, how do you pick what to choose? Because some stuff, I know Mike's dreadful for this side. He likes to do certain things that he probably shouldn't. So how do you stop that?
So that's a really good question. Actually, I think it's about balance. So you have to play to people's strengths. So I will always delegate certain things to certain people because they're the best at it. I think I would then ask them to delegate further. I would say, well, instead of you doing this, why don't you take it and give it to this person and coach them? And then you kind of got a three-way win, because not only have I delegated something to someone I trust because they're my favorite, if you like, I've also said to them, why don't you delegate it to help them learn some delegation skills, bring someone new into the piece, and then they can learn as well. But I think that's a very good question. It is hard, and I think you see some business leaders taking established teams with them from place to place, and sometimes it's really hard to explain the dynamic. You get a high-performing team because everyone really knows their strengths in the team, and so it's a dynamic that works really well. But I think, you know, what's the consequence of always asking the same person to do stuff? Well, probably other people feeling left out. So sometimes you have to step back and take a risk. Most of this is just about taking a risk. So take a risk with stuff that isn't going to ruin your business. Take a risk on things that are low impact, and start small and then build it up, and you will be able to get more and more done. And I think one of the things that I think I found over the years is all the stuff that really matters. So someone said, if if it doesn't matter in a year, it doesn't matter. I think that's really important, because the stuff that you kind of go, that really matters. I really want that done. That must be done. I don't want it done exactly like that. Will it matter in a year? No, it just doesn't matter then, does it? So, and what that means for me is that all the small stuff, yeah, it might matter today, but you know what? If something bigger comes along, if you run a 10-person recruitment company and suddenly you get a phone call from someone who says, I'd like to buy your company, I'd like to offer you £150 million for it. Well, everything you think is important right now is out the window. You've completely forgotten all of that, and other stuff becomes important. So
I can vouch for that, actually. Yeah. Not 150 million, but I can vouch for that.
Say, you got something to tell me, Big Mike, because my inheritance.
Sadly not.
No, I think if you're delegating stuff, you might think it's really important and no one else can do it apart from you, but you're denying loads of people loads of opportunities. And actually, if it's not, whatever it is that you don't want to delegate, if it's not important in a year, it's not important.
Well, I think that's been, we won't have time to round up today. There's so much. I think we'd be here at 1:30, actually. There's so much in there, but thank you so much for that. That's been brilliant. And I know, because I've known you a long time, you are a brilliant delegator. You are the man that goes to meetings without pen and paper. You're the only HR director I think I know that's not busy all the time, that's got plenty of time for you and got plenty of time for his people, and takes holidays and lunches. Quite a lot, yeah. Lunches. I expect I'll be lunching when things open up. Yeah, and that I think is a testament. As a leader, time for your people, time to think, is the most precious thing that you can have, and you get that by delegating 100%. So thank you very much for appearing on the show, on Kirsty's show, I should say. Sorry, or was it Barry's show? I don't know. Who knows?
I think it was Barry's today.
It is, yeah. Just to say as well, guys, next week we've got Tom Phillips on the show. He's going to talk to us about NLP, which is very exciting. It's like a magical thing that you can do.
I don't know what that means, so we're all excited.
Neuro-linguistic programming. It's like magic. You see.
Spoilers.
I'll write a piece and post it. You'll be fine. Okay. So do you want to round up, Kirsten? We'll close down.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much to Barry. There's been so much there. And essentially what we've mostly got from it for me is that delegation is essential if you want to be sane and do your job well. So there are a couple of things in there that and scale, yeah. So there's a couple of things in there that you can do. Essentially, most of it comes down to taking a risk and understanding the team that you've got. So once again, Barry, thank you so much. I'm sure Big Mike will send you some sort of luncheon invite or something as a thank you. Thank you to Big Mike, over there with his first tea beckoning coming in the background. And thank you to everybody who watches. If you've got any comments, please let us know in the comment section. And we'll see you all next week.
We'll see you next week. Thank you.